600 miles of synaptic fiber, 5.5 ounces of cranial fluid, 1,500 grams of complex neural matter, a 3-pound pile of dreams. The perfect playground for a 3D platformer. I've always loved games that take place inside somebody's head. The psychological horrors, the bizarre compilations of random thought and memory, unorganized thoughts warping landscapes and bending reality itself, because in here, reality has no limits. It's a concept that gives you a lot of freedom, which is why it's such a great idea for 3D platformers, theming levels not after the elements or different locations, but a person. Taking somebody's history, their inner struggles, and turning that into a level.
A psychic adventure from the mind of Tim Schafer.
Oh, that's a name I don't hear much these days. If you paid attention to video game news anywhere from like the mid-2000s to the mid-2010s, Tim Schafer was probably a name you'd hear a lot. With a long history of working on comedic-focused adventure games, he made a name for himself by making games that were a little more against the grain, like in means of tone and humor and gameplay, just stuff that's a little different, a little quirkier, you know. He made a game where you play as Jack Black. I remember thinking that was cool as hell as a teenager. I know some people got some opinions of Tim Schafer, but I ain't here to talk shit, I'm here to talk about platformers, and Double Fine's 2005 smash hit Psychonauts is an all-time cult classic. It wasn't a smash hit, no, this thing sold like dirt when it was new. When this thing first came out, nobody bought it, and it almost fell into total obscurity. And with box art as badass as this, I'm surprised it didn't catch more eyes. I mean, look at this, it's so freaking cool! Just the colors and the contrast and that big hazy swirl with all the characters from the game hidden in the background. I remember seeing this on the shelf at Zeller's when I was a kid, and I thought it looked so freaking cool. I wanted to play it so bad, but unfortunately at the time I only had a GameCube and the game was just on Xbox, and a little bit later they ported it to PS2, but not GameCube, so like most of everybody else, kid me never got to experience it, as much as I know I would have loved it back then. Thank God for the internet, dude. Like, if it wasn't for that, this thing never would have got that second wind. As word of mouth spread, the Steam version slowly picked up momentum over the years, and that's when I finally played it. I got the Steam version when I was a teenager in high school, and I thought it was phenomenal. Like, the humor, the moveset, the level design, it was all so different and weird and inventive, and I never finished it, actually. It had nothing to do with the game or anything. Something else I was excited for just came out. I'm pretty sure LA Noire dropped, and that just devoured the next 4 months of my life. I was right before the elevator that goes up to the top of the Asylum, so I never got to see what was up there or what the final level even looked like. And then I just kind of forgot about it, so I'm gonna take this as an opportunity to finally see how this thing ends. I really want to see that meat circus level everybody says is so freaking hard or whatever. I am gonna go with the OG Xbox version for this video though. Don't worry, PC nerds, I'm gonna talk about the other versions too, but it's just that I gotta finish this the way it started in my mind. You know, like seeing this on the shelf and wishing I had an Xbox to play it with. Now, I have an Xbox. So let's boot that sucker up and play some Psychonauts. Okay, that's a seriously sick title screen. I gotta say, like, it is a sincerely cool thing when the very moment you're looking at the game, it's already as cool looking as the box art promised. And it's also the menu. You just walk around to the back and you got your options right there. These sorts of menus, man, like, I swear they are a lost art. There's something really magical about controlling the character, like, in some shape or form on second one after those logos roll, like Mario Sunshine. Like, how many other games have you accidentally figuring out some of the moves before you've even watched the intro cutscene yet? I love that sort of thing.
The wars of this modern age, the psychic age, are all fought somewhere between these damp, curvaceous undulations.
As we begin, we're introduced to Coach Oleander, a psychic soldier running a summer camp for kids with psychic abilities. He's doing it in hopes of finding young and powerful minds that could someday be trained into Psychonauts.
They told me this was a summer camp.
Yeah, these kids aren't exactly Psychonaut material, but emerging from the bushes is somebody who is. Raz, a kid with powerful psychic abilities who ran away from the circus in hopes of becoming a Psychonaut.
Where do you think you're going?
You've broken into a highly classified remote government training facility.
I know. Isn't it great?
Oh yeah, dude, it's like badass as hell, but I hate to break it to you, Raz, but you're not allowed to stay at summer camp without your parents' signature, so you're only able to stay a little while before your dad comes to pick you up. But as you could probably guess, it only takes a little while for things to hit the fan, so worry not, Raz, you're getting that Psychonauts experience. This opening cutscene does a really good job of setting up the world and characters and stuff, because like by the end of this intro, they've established all of the concepts. I know what a Psychonaut is, I know why these two are such a big deal, I know Raz's motives and personality, I understand the role of his peers in the summer camp. It's all established really effectively and smoothly, all from the get-go.
I'm the strong man around here.
Really? Because you look more like the cotton candy.
Damn, Raz talking mad shit, dude. Like, this kid doesn't take crap from anybody, and I love it, because, like, it makes this bully character so freaking funny. Like, he knows he couldn't even touch Raz, he's way too strong, but, like, his arrogance still just, like, towers over you, so you're, like, you're just sitting there like, okay, bud, alright, yeah, you just knowing you just kill this guy with one hit. One hit.
Man, what smells like butt?
He is kind of hard in the eyes, though. Oh my lord, those teeth. That's actually not an uncommon complaint I've heard about this game, like disliking the character design, and like, I guess I get it, they are cruder designs they're not meant to make you feel good. It's supposed to make you feel like the world's a little grimy, a little gross, but come on, man. I mean, we live in an era where everything mainstream has to look extremely sleek and polished and perfect, but no matter what the medium is, it's gotta look that way, so when you look back on stuff that was brave enough to look like this, it's really hard not to appreciate it. This shit's got way more personality than half of the high-budget, clean-ass stuff we see today. Like, how can you not love a character like Dogen?
I would never do that. I could never kill everyone.
This campground is full of these kids, and a lot of them are just as weird.
You're pretty cute. I'm not human.
Every single one of these kids is something dumb to say.
I'm hunting the most dangerous prey of all. Man.
They really have some seriously good voice talent on board here. Like, it is definitely the deliveries that really sell each character's absolute genuine weirdness.
Regular people can be mean to fish, I guess, but I can't. I can hear everything the little guys are thinking.
Fish think? About what?
If you recognize Raz's voice, that's because that is Richard Stephen Horvitz coming out of him. He's these guys, and his performance here is really great. It's a surprisingly good fit.
That works on big scary monsters?
Raz is definitely a lot calmer than the chaotic characters he usually plays, but there's still a hint of that sharp sarcasm that knows exactly when to sneak out.
You know, my bulldog friend could still paint a beer gut on that poster out there.
This game can be pretty chatty though, like they're not the longest cutscenes in the world or anything, but Psychonauts being a game with focus on comedic writing, there kinda has to be a lot of writing, so expect a lot more dialogue than your typical platformer. It's not the most ambitious story, it's pretty simple honestly, but it's all of the character development we get along the way that makes a story so interesting. Not just for Raz, but for all of the characters that we explore the minds of as well. There's some pretty good examples of when the writing and gameplay meet together really well, like not being able to go in water, for example. It's a pretty common way to put up the boundaries because it's a lot more organic than just putting up invisible walls. But that organicness can wear thin if the reason your character can't go in the water seems like something they just kinda made up and is never really brought up at all. Psychonauts understands this though, so they worked it into Raz's backstory. His family was cursed by fortune tellers to die in water, and that's also why they have a general distaste for anything psychic, causing Raz to run away from home to begin with. So instead of just feeling like some excuse why the game doesn't let you swim, it becomes this real factor with context and weight that contributes just as much to driving the story forward as it does being a simple gameplay thing. There's a lot of things like that in this game that really cleverly serve a double purpose, like all of those exchanges with your fellow campers. They're not only gags to make you laugh, but it also does a really good job of teasing other abilities that you too will get to use later on.
You grabbed one of the squirrel's nuts, and now you're using clairvoyance on it to form a mental link and see what the squirrel sees.
Could you say acorns instead of nuts if you repeat that to anybody else?
I really do love the writing here, but I can't guarantee the humor's gonna be everybody's cup of tea, but luckily if that is the case, you are able to skip the grand majority of cutscenes with the push of a button. Pretty admirable thing to do, honestly, like letting the player shove a sock in all the mouths that you put so much freaking work and effort into, but a lesser game would force you to sit through unskippable cutscenes, and I think we all know how much that damages replayability. Alright, here we are, Whispering Rock. The campground, and later on the neighboring Asylum, is what we have for a hub world here, and man, I was actually pretty surprised by just how much there is to do here. Not only is this where you'll access every different level, but there's also a ton of collectibles scattered all throughout, giving you a pretty good reason to fully explore every weird little nook and cranny here, and they do a really good job of getting the most out of the moveset in the process. And that just might be my single favorite thing about this thing, dude. You got psychic powers! I'd be pretty disappointed if they didn't think of some cool-ass moves. And buddy, let me tell you, Raz can do a lot more than the average platformer man can. I mean, between his psychokinetic and acrobatic abilities, there is just so much to work with here. So what do we got for platforming? Raz can use his mind to conjure a thought bubble, this buoyant sphere of psychic energy. You're able to use it to double jump, bounce around, high up into the air, and float down gracefully for those precise landings. Don't worry, I'll spare you my rant about why I hate double jumps this time, but only because I think the game does a really good job of preventing the double jump from trivializing the other types of jumps. Oh man, the movement in this game is so much fun. It's bouncy, it's wobbly, but it doesn't feel slippery, you know? Like you're launching yourself up, you're hitting that smooth arc, and then you're trying to weave around each obstacle. This levitation move can be pretty OP sometimes though, like it's really not hard to break certain parts of the game with it, but I guess that's why you don't unlock it until the later levels. Those ones are more so developed with this thing in mind. It's really fast too, so it's really great for getting around those bigger levels, and I love how quick it feels, just like popping in and out of this thing for either a quick jump or just to roll around a little faster. Like, man, once I got this thing, it was my absolute go-to for getting around. But until then, you'll be putting Raz's Circus experience to work, bouncing on trampolines, swinging on poles. I like how you can press a button to rotate Raz around. It makes it pretty easy to carefully line up each jump. You might have to be a little bit patient with it sometimes. It can be a tad clunky, nothing you can't get used to though, but I do admit the trampolines always took me a bunch of tries. I swear the timing on these things is super weird. We also got tight ropes. That's something I always thought was a pretty underrated platformer mechanic, though I do like the way they feel in Mario Sunshine way more, and yeah, it's definitely down to how fast you're able to get on top of one of these things. Psychonauts has you grabbing it from underneath, making you wait for a climbing animation, but Mario, no, you just go up through it, you land, and you're on it, which I really do prefer, but you know, it's a nitpick. On that note though, I do really like the game's ledge grab. It's very sticky, and it never feels like you missed the lip of any platforms you should have latched onto. Raz can also grind. It's just basic magnetic rail switching grinding that you see in every game, but they do at least use it to bring you through some seriously cool set pieces. The core moveset here is pretty dense. There's so many different actions you can do, and each level seemed to be really good about like remembering to have a lot of obstacles that actually make use of those moves. Now, levitation aside, the rest of Raz's psychic abilities are more so geared towards interacting with your environment and combating enemies, a lot of which can even be used for both in some capacity. Your psychic fists and your Psy Blast are what you'll primarily be using for fighting. Lock on with the L button and you'll be able to do all these dodgy flips, really good for getting out of the way. You're scooting up to them for a quick punch. You're also able to dodge and shoot at the same time, and that skips the animation that normally leaves Raz open, so you can just hold these two and mash these two and pretty much just decimate everybody. It's not bad combat though. Like in games about platforming and moving around and stuff, I really appreciate it when they find a way to still make the combat about doing that. And what we have here is a good balance between shooting and dodging and your old faithful 1, 2, 3, but even more excitingly, you're also free to throw in any other abilities at any time you want. Punching and shooting is usually the most effective thing to do, but I've actually had a couple of times where they were in like too weird a spot to shoot, but I was in a safe spot away from them, so pyrokinesis actually ended up being my best option. This really seems like one of those abilities a game would just like forget about after you use it one time, but I can actually remember a lot of times I needed this. In fact, I can say that about nearly every ability. Maybe not so much the confusion power, I didn't really find much use for it outside the one fight, but hey, you gotta at least love that animation. Like, come on, that is genius. But everything else, man, I mean, like the shield, it's obviously a ton of help when you need to protect yourself, but they find a lot of other ways to use it, like deflecting lasers back at your enemies, and the invisibility. I was certain I would use this thing one time and never again, but the amount of times where the solution really was just, yeah, I guess if I'm invisible here, they won't see me. Oh wow, like that worked. Like it had me feeling like a real ass Psychonaut. I felt like I had a magic little bag of tricks, you know? Like, I have this toolbox that is full of all these genuinely useful and genuinely badass moves that I am constantly busting out. Like, why would you set up a scripted sequence where you get to be cool guy doing the cool thing when instead you could just plant around all of these opportunities for me to be cool guy myself? I'm willing to bet it's all that history with adventure games that really helped out in this department because, you know, the very nature of those things is all about pairing actions and objects and dialogue to different parts of the world and stuff, so it makes sense. It's pretty interesting seeing how experience with a totally different genre can really help you out when doing another. Clairvoyance is where this becomes the most apparent. Seeing through somebody else's eyes is something you can do a lot of fun puzzly stuff with. Each ability can be selected from this wheel here, and from there you can assign them to one of 3 button slots. The Psy Blast is what most people will probably keep in the R button. You know, it's good to pull a trigger to fire a shot, but I do also like sticking telekinesis on there sometimes too, since I don't ever really use them both at the same time. These black and white buttons though, I always forget about these because like the OG Xbox controller was the only one that ever had them, and they are kinda weird to hit. It's just like a thumb movement that a lot of controllers don't really ask you for, you know? I don't mind having levitation on black though. I do like how you can hit it with the middle of your thumb without really moving it too far. The white button I'll just stick like whatever else on though. That one's kinda weird to hit. If you're playing on literally anything else though, and chances are you probably are, you're not gonna have to deal with these 2 little weirdos. You're able to unlock more abilities by boosting your Cadet rank, which you're able to do by grabbing the game's many collectibles, but some of these powers will be given to you during key moments in certain levels. And buddy, does Psychonauts have some cool-ass levels. I mean, we're escaping reality itself here. Each level takes place inside a different person's head, so the level design, theming, and characters, they're all based off of the person's experiences, and if they're a troubled individual, their greatest fears. The first level has Coach Oleander sucking us into his mind for basic braining, diving right into the trenches of war. Jesus Christ, it's a pretty brutal thing to put these poor kids through right out of the gate, don't you think? He's dead. As you make your way through each level, you'll be collecting tons, and I really do mean tons, of these figments. So, you know, Mario's got coins, Spyro's got gems, Crash has fruit, but Psychonauts, on the other hand, has you collecting thoughts, feelings, and memories, all in their most abstract and underdeveloped form. All of these little tiny pieces of the person you're currently exploring the mind of. And it's really cool, because for once, it kind of feels like the collectibles are helping to tell the story. This game is so good at linking every little mechanic back to the narrative in some shape or form. And that sort of thing requires a lot of work. Like, it must have taken forever. Drawing all of these little pictures, like, could you imagine if every coin in a Mario game looked unique? Granted, they do repeat quite a bit, but it's still an absurd amount of work for something they could have just all made look the same, like a coin or something. And that much is absolutely worth admiring the hell out of. You can also sort out the host's emotional baggage, taking the form of these literal bags that are literally emotional. Each one requires you to find the corresponding tag and bring it back. That is just so clever and adorable and cute and fun, because, like, you know, some concepts are just so abstract and hard to convey. Sorting the emotions in somebody's head, finding really fun ways to convey that sort of thing is easily one of Psychonauts' greatest strengths. Another really good example of this being those safes that hide away their deepest memories. Cracking open one of these bad boys gets you one of these cute little slideshows that allows you to peek into some of the best and worst moments of their life. Before long, we also get to dive into Agent 9 and Agent Vodella's minds. These are more or less just tutorials on how to use the Psy Blast and levitation moves, but as far as levels that literally only exist to teach you a move go, these are probably as good as they come, honestly. I found Agent 9's a little drab. It's just some basic shooting and some really simple platforming, but I really love this idea of his mind being like so organized that it all fits tightly into this perfect cube that he has total control over, and that allows for some really fun story moments. Raz poking around where he shouldn't be and unleashing these frightening suppressed memories that unfold into these big platforming sequences. Vodella's level is a lot more fun to actually play though, because they're teaching us a jumping move, so you can expect a lot of jumping, a lot of bouncing, and a lot of moving and grooving. You'll come back to the campsite between each level, and each time you'll have an opportunity to use any of your new moves to look for more collectibles. Now, while the dream worlds have you collecting figments, safes, and emotional baggage, the hub worlds have their own set of collectibles. We got side cards, side challenge markers, and all of those scavenger hunt items too. I actually didn't realize you have to talk to Cruller right here to trade in the items for your Psy rank, so when I was going for 100%, I had everything in the entire game done except talking to him, and I was missing 8 ranks and I had no idea what to do, and then I just talked to him by accident, and it was like, oh, I felt so stupid. The side challenge markers really are not what they sound like they are. Like, I thought I'd have to complete a challenge to get the thing or something, but no, they're just like these sparkly card floaty things that you just get them and they just rank you up. The side cards you'll have to trade into Agent Cruller's lab. Doing this will get you even more challenge markers, which in turn will rank you up even more.
They'll come in pretty handy for you.
Ford Cruller. Oh, he is definitely one of the game's best characters. This is the head honcho behind the whole Psychonauts organization. Long after his prime, though, he definitely ain't in the same shape he used to be. Some time ago, in a previous Psychonauts mission, his mind was left with dissociative identity disorder, so he has no idea who he even is, unless he's back at his lab surrounded by Titanium.
Hey, Mr. Cruller, can I take out a canoe?
Mr. Who?
If you find Cruller anywhere else in the camp, though, he's gonna be stuck as one of his alter egos, without any clue who he is, who you are, or what's going on. And as such, you can find him filling many of the camp's different roles, tending to the boats, organizing the scavenger hunt. You can even find him in the main lodge, running a shop, where you can trade in any arrowheads you found for various items. The psi cores you'll have to buy if you want to trade in some cards at the lab. There's some health item I never bought or used at all ever. You can also change the color of your levitation ball if you have enough arrowheads. That was pretty cool. I thought green was a pretty good look. If you want to afford those more pricey items, you're gonna have to first save up for that dowsing rod. Using this thing, you can score big and then use those arrowheads to buy the rest of the items. Again, it's very adventure game-esque, you know, like treating the shop more like a puzzle, even if it does function like video game shops usually do. The mental cobweb duster is one of the most important things you can buy here at the shop, because it lets you collect a whole new collectible. Yeah, mental cobwebs. There's a couple of these clogging up those mines you'll be exploring. Getting these and trading them into the lab will once again contribute to your rank. And I was pleasantly surprised by how much improving your rank actually matters here. Every handful of ranks, the game just throws another sick upgrade at you, like, oh, you've been grabbing those figments? Nice. Here's a better Psy Blast, dude. It bounces all over the place, hits a ton of guys now. Oh, and you've been grabbing all that emotional baggage? Sweet. Here's a levitation ball that also hurts guys, just for you, little buddy. I gotta say, it felt pretty freaking cool noticing all the minor tweaks to my abilities and realizing that, like, yeah, getting all the stuff has actually made me feel a lot more powerful. Those psychic bears back at camp don't stand a chance now. At first I found the map design in the hub really weird. We're not standing on your typical even ground here. This is some seriously warped terrain, which I guess does give it a lot of style, you know, like the crooked angles and asymmetry, the kind of stuff you'd expect from a Rayman game or a Luigi's Mansion game. It's something that Psychonauts also loves to play with, and they really go all out with it here. They're not just making characters all bent, they're not just making doorways all bent, they do it to the entire map. And that does make the map kinda weird to navigate before you get used to it, but don't let that intimidate you. It is gonna feel a little bit awkward getting around at first, but by the time you're halfway through this thing, you're gonna know this place like the back of your hand. Every location is totally distinct, and there's plenty of iconic landmarks to help with your sense of direction. It also has a wicked good fast travel system, so getting around really doesn't take very long at all.
They stole Dogen's brains.
After coming back to the hump world a few times, you'll begin to uncover a brain-napping conspiracy. Somebody wants brains, and they've been stealing them from the kids here at the campground. This is where the game really starts to pick up, when we follow the trail of clues to an asylum on a neighboring island. From here on out, every level is just a banger. Like, we start by going into the mind of a sea monster and playing this kaiju stage. Every citizen's this little sea monster guy, and they're all freaking out that you're destroying the city.
Why, Goggalore, why?
Goggalore? Oh, the goggles, I see. Oh my god, you can just smoosh them all to a pulp! This level is really good at making you feel genuinely gigantic. The earth is trembling beneath each footstep, your movement is all heavy and slow, and at first I kind of felt like that might actually hinder the pace here a little bit, but thankfully the size of the world is appropriately scaled, so it doesn't drag on too bad. You also get to see a bunch of news coverage of the destruction, and it is delightfully dumb.
Goggalore broke some of his jailhouse cronies out of the slammer so they could enjoy a night on the town, popping pills and soliciting inexpensive call girls.
Though as funny as I do find these, I do think the pacing with them could be a little better here. Like once or twice you'll finish a scene and then walk forward like 2 nanometers and get another one. They should have either done a better job spacing them all out, or maybe merged 1 or 2 of them with another neighboring cutscene, you know, just to avoid like that awkward, meaningless gameplay space in between. But I guess it is just a minor nitpick, especially since you can just skip all the cutscenes if you really don't want to see them.
At least that's what the media would have you believe.
Okay, now here's the one that everybody's probably heard of. The Milkman Conspiracy. This is Boyd, the Asylum security guard. Can you let us in, Boyd?
Sorry, the milkman has the key. I am not the milkman. I'm the guard.
Okay, well, where the hell can I find the milkman? I'll give you a hint. It ain't out here in the real world. But who's looking? You, me, everyone? Who can we trust? Not you, not me. Who are you? Who am I?
I am on the road crew. This is my stop sign.
Yes, we are all on the road crew. Our backs are killing us.
This is where that clairvoyance really gets to shine. By collecting and holding a variety of different objects you find along the way, Raz is able to convince the other characters that he's filling specific roles, allowing you to blend in and sneak through. And just because I know some people are definitely wondering, no, the invisibility doesn't work here. These guys see right through that trick, so you're gonna have to play their mind games instead. You can also use a feather to see through the watchful gaze of the neighborhood crows, giving you a literal bird's eye view. And I love how all the characters literally see you differently. Like, I had a blast with this ability, just using it on random characters to see what they think of you. This is another really good example of them putting like way too much work into such a small and meaningless thing. But it really does make all the difference. The amount of times you're just impressed by like an odd, cute little thing and then you get lit on fire. That's the Psychonauts experience. Anyway, Milkman, yes, thematically, I think this level is pure genius. We enter a directionless limbo where suburban streets bend and twist, warping gravity along with it, as if we had two giant godlike hands crumpling up an entire neighborhood like newspaper. Nothing in this level can be trusted. Everything's watching you. There's cameras popping out of the fire hydrants, there's eyes in the mailboxes, even the Girl Scouts selling cookies door to door are keeping secrets from you. It is legitimately one of the most memorable levels I've ever played in any platformer, and I think it's pretty obvious why people talk about it so dang much. But what really makes it such a brilliant level is how clever they are with using the theming here to represent different aspects of Boyd's character. We see elements of paranoia, distrust, and filling roles, and these are all things that make a lot of sense when we see snippets of Boyd's life. He seems to associate the role of the milkman with a past act of violence, and that's now manifested as its own personality within his mind. If we emerge that personality, we get the milkman.
I am the milkman. My milk is delicious.
Boyd?
Now we're in. Time to look at the minds of who else is here. This one takes us into the mind of a struggling artist, and fittingly so, the art direction here goes all freaking out. The colors, the contrast. They even gave Raz a unique costume for this one. There's a pretty fun theme here of feeling trapped and artwork being your only escape, so they kind of designed the level to feel that way too. Like you're stuck in all these narrow alleyways and you get to use these paintings as items to get out of them. As you go through the level, you'll gradually help Edgar get over his artist block, but not before you discover the true cause of it that lingers in his past.
Anyway, you only did that to hide out from the school wrestling team.
One of my favorite things about this level is how you buy all those paintings from those dogs that play poker. That's such a fun idea. The most unique level in the game is probably this theater level. The second half is a more traditional platforming sequence, up in the rafters as you chase the phantom of the theater or whatever, but the first half is almost like an old adventure game. You're not platforming through a level this time, it's just one big room, and you're putting on a play. You're switching out the backdrops on the stage, changing up the lighting, and you're getting your actors to read through each scene as you collect more scripts.
Becky, can we see the Night of Joy again?
If you pair the right script with the right setup, it'll advance the stage, giving you a brand new backdrop to work with. It's kind of like one big puzzle, a really inventive one at that. I can see this level dragging on for some people though, like you will end up sitting through the same dialogue a couple of times as you try to figure out the right combo, and like, it was funny watching them read the lines badly the first time, but each time after that it felt like they were just really dragging out each scene by reading every line really slowly.
He was brave in thought and deed.
This as fast as you can read? And yeah, you can skip the cutscenes, but you do have to watch them to see if you did something right or if you did something wrong, so it's not really something you can do on a first playthrough. Being such a writing-heavy level, it's just unfortunately the kind of thing that's either going to be one of your favorite levels, or flat out the worst part of the entire game for you. I mean, like, I enjoyed it a lot, but I can easily see it being kind of patience testing. My favorite level is Waterloo, actually. Yeah, this guy's stuck in a battle in his mind against the memory of his ancestor, Napoleon Bonaparte.
I only think I'm Napoleon Bonaparte. Do not listen to the weakling.
He denies his lineage because he fears it.
That's some like Assassin's Creed ass logic, but okay. They're playing this big war game and you get to shrink into the board and everything becomes real and you talk to the characters and move around the pieces and change the course of the game. I'd say it's probably the best blend of puzzle solving, platforming, and exploration. The world's big and interesting, there's a lot to do, there's a lot of really fun and cool moments, and I really love how smooth these transitions are, going up to a space and shrinking down into the world and then finding a water spout you can use to pop back up out of there. It is seamless. Same deal with crawling out of the board back into the living room. No loading screens or anything. After we're done spelunking those minds and solving some mental madness, it's finally time for that infamous final level. The Meat Circus. I'm not going to spoil anything story-wise here, but I'll put a timestamp just in case anybody wants to save the surprise for themselves. Okay, so I think I know why people hate this level so much. It's an escort mission! You have to quickly platform all the way up to the next area before the enemies kill this dude, which that's always a really fun mechanic. Worrying about some idiot who dives headfirst into danger. Love that. Not only that though, but you also have to use your telekinesis to grab this animal he's chasing and hold it in place long enough for him to catch up to it, and that can be a little bit annoying to do when you're trying to fight all these guys at the same time. But it really wasn't that hard, because at this point my Psy rank was so freaking high that my Psy blast would decimate every enemy on screen in 2 shots, so it really wasn't that difficult. I mean, as long as you're level 40. Even easier, level 70, which is still not that hard to get to. Everybody kept telling me I was gonna hate this level, but like, this is actually pretty fun. They even throw a couple of brand new ideas at you here too. Okay, maybe that's it. Maybe people didn't like having to figure out a brand new type of obstacle on the clock, and yeah, that did make me have to restart a bunch of times, but once you have it down, you have it down. Like, the run only takes a minute or 2. People complain about the checkpoints too. How many checkpoints do you need? It takes less than 2 minutes to get up to the top of the room. It took me 15 minutes of practice first, but I really don't think it's asking for a whole lot here. I think this level's difficulty is really over-exaggerated. Like, the sequence where a guy's throwing stuff at you can be a little tough, and it took me a number of tries to do, yeah, but nowhere near enough to get me even remotely frustrated or anything like that. A hot gamer tip for you: if he keeps knocking you down, it's probably because you're jumping. Getting hit in the air will knock you back, but there is no knockback if you're on the tightrope, so it's actually a lot easier to just stop dodging everything and let it all hit you. But that's the only thing I really had to pick up on here. Like, it really wasn't that difficult, guys. Like, it almost makes me wonder if some dude on YouTube really exaggerated how bad this was, and that just, like, maybe a domino affected into one of those things people generally believe about old games is not, like, really that true. Or maybe it could just be one of those things that's, like, really hard as a kid, but not so bad as an adult. I guess the game having it, like, at the very end of it kind of makes it hard to test, too. But either way, like, as long as you're good enough at platformers, you got nothing to worry about. It's really not that bad. Honestly, I had a harder time 100%ing this game than I did beating my Meat Circus. It's far from the hardest game to 100%, everything you collect is immediately saved, and the game never pulls anything really annoying, but I did still have some gripes with it. Firstly, it's a little annoying viewing your totals. You can only see what you have in that one particular zone in that level. Each level does have a light outside the door to tell you when you have everything, but I don't know, I really just wish I could see it all from the pause menu instead of having to go outside, check the light, go in, and then warp around and pause a bunch to find where I have to look. I guess that one is more of a nitpick, but oh man, some of these areas in particular, they can be a real pain in the ass. The levitation racetrack, for example, it was a great way to explore the physics and the speed this move can work with, yeah, but why would you put collectibles here? Combing an entire linear racetrack with multiple pathways for a shit ton of collectibles is just flat out annoying, no matter what game it's in. Some of these figments are extra annoying to collect for no reason, too. They fly all around the place, clipping through the environment, forcing you to painstakingly observe its path and figure out where it's gonna be, and then patiently wait for the right moment. I'm okay with the occasional moving figment, you know, making you chase it a little bit, that's fine, but did they really have to make them go through the walls and zip all over the frickin' place? But the real problem here lies in the sheer amount of these figments, and hey, I'm all for having a lot of collectibles. It's a great way to get me off my ass and explore all the nooks and crannies here. The scavenger hunt items and the side cards, they had me up on the rooftops and looking down in the parking lot. It was a ton of fun. and tracking down all those brains and jars had me on the hunt in the asylum, peering through each dilapidated corner for any hidden rooms. But figments aren't like those items. They're the equivalent of coins or rings. There's hundreds of them in each level, and they don't stick out nearly as much either. So once you get like 99% of them and there's only 2 left in a level this big, it's inevitably going to become a needle in a haystack scenario, and nobody likes that. This is why I hate the idea of getting every single one of a finite amount of items. Like, I always use the Mario games as the golden example, the 100 coin stars. Imagine how much more irritating they'd be if there was only 100 coins. Well, I guess if you're not going for 100% and you're only getting the figments to improve your rank, then they do kind of work that way. Like, there are more than what you need to get your rank up to something pretty good, so on a casual playthrough, there's really no problem with the figments at all. But if you really want that 100%, you better prepare to spend way too long in each level looking for a grain of sand. Getting everything else is a blast, and the game even has a really good warping system, making returning to previous areas for cleanup as easy as possible. But when it's down to the wire and you only have a couple of figments left in each level, I honestly really wouldn't bother at that point. Perhaps a late game psychic upgrade that lets you detect figments could have helped out with that. Unlock it at like level 90 or something, as a way to say, hey, you got most of it by yourself, let's make the last few a little easier on you. Or maybe you could just like lie and say there's 400 figments when there's really like 430 or something, and just vanish the remaining 30 once you get 400. You know, just like one of those invisible things behind the curtains to make the experience smoother. But as it stands, there's nothing like that here, so I really wouldn't bother wasting your time getting the last couple of figments, unless you really want that achievement. But I'm just saying, you can just look up the secret movie you get for it on YouTube. Oh, that video is a really cute reward though. It's a really good payoff to anybody who picked up on some of the more subtle character development, piecing a bit of the lore together. I really appreciated it. Oh, probably also worth mentioning, there's actually a hidden rank 101 if you complete Oleander's punching minigame in the first level. This is another one of those things people have told me is infamously difficult, but I had this done in like 7 minutes, so I'm gonna assume it's another one of those things that's just kind of like easier when you come back to it as an adult. And with that said, I am really glad I finally came back to this game. I did like it a lot when I first played it as a teenager, but returning to it now with a fine-tooth comb, I'm only now realizing just how much is under the surface here. All of the world building and optional dialogue and character backstories. Psychonauts has a really simple plot at the surface, but underneath that hood is a dense universe. It's always been heavily implied that there's a lot more beyond the scope of this campground, and after 16 years, we are just now finally getting to see it. God, what a cool ass game. What a cool ass thing. You know what I mean? Like, could you imagine putting this much care, this much love into something like this just to watch it flop? But then, over the years, you watch it slowly but surely pick itself back up. And the best part is, after all these years, it's not only just as worth playing, but it's just as easy to get your hands on too. If you do want to play Psychonauts, I'd actually recommend the PC version. It's crisper, it runs smoother, and you get that widescreen, but most importantly, it's super accessible. It's just on Steam, and it's been dirt cheap for years. It's only $10, and it doesn't even require very powerful hardware to run either. This is what video game preservation looks like. If this game were never added to Steam and remained there for this price all these years, people would never have been able to play this thing so dang easily. You ever wonder why nobody ever asks how to pirate Psychonauts? You ever wonder why nobody is complaining about how it runs on emulators or how much it costs on eBay? Because they don't have to. This game is so easy to get your hands on in an official form, and that's the very reason it survived its initial failure to launch. It's also on modern Xboxes and PS4 and 5. I don't know anything about the newer Xbox versions, but I do know the PS4 version is based on the PS2 version, and that version had some lighting that looked pretty bad, and the frame rate can get pretty chunky too here. It is a perfectly playable version of the game, but I was pretty disappointed to see them emulating the PS2 version when they should have done a proper port of the PC version and had it running at 60 with widescreen. I mean, if that's what you already have, I wouldn't say to not play that version, like don't spend the extra money if you don't have to, but the PC version is undoubtedly the best version of this thing. You also get more input freedom on PC, so it's easier to pick a controller you like. I thought it played pretty great with the Switch Pro controller. Those triggers being digital buttons, I really like that. I found they work better for the lock-on and SI abilities than the analog triggers of the Xbox. games. But whatever version you go with, Psychonauts is a must freaking play for anybody big into platformers. It's just so unlike most other games in the genre, from the writing to the unique scenarios to the moveset to how the level design consistently gets the most out of the moveset. It still blows my mind that this game actually finally got a sequel. Like, I really want you guys to fully realize that this sort of thing does not usually happen. Budgets have to come from somewhere, and that somewhere is really big companies. And unfortunately, big companies only make decisions based on numbers. Games like Psychonauts do not do numbers, so finding somebody who would fund and publish Psychonauts 2 should have been impossible. But after a weird crowdfunding campaign, a weird VR spin-off, and a weird acquisition by Microsoft, it finally happened. It's out, it's real, and it's here. Could it possibly live up to the original masterpiece? I think it's possible. I mean, like, it feels like Psychonauts is only scratching the surface of what its concept is capable of. I think there's a lot more to explore here, and I think Psychonauts 2 could very well do a mighty fine job of exploring it, but I guess we'll find out soon enough, because next time we're gonna be talking Schafer's psychedelic sequel. Is it gonna live up to the hype? Is it gonna be worth the 16-year wait? Let's find out. Yo, what's good? Thank you so much for watching, dude. I've been saying for years I wanted to save Psychonauts for when the sequel finally dropped, and here we are finally! Psychonauts 2 is amazing and you really should buy it, but I'll have my full review out as soon as I'm able to. And hey, if you'd like to support the channel, I got a $1 podcast up on patreon.com. Wait, actually no! Use your money to buy Psychonauts 2!